In this video, I'm looking at standalone properties in the Greenbelt. As usual, I'm checking out decisions made by the planning appeal inspectors. In every case, the householder is appealing against a condition applied by the council that removed certain permitted development rights. In this case, the appealed property is a converted agricultural building set back from the road. The site is located within the open countryside and within the Greenbelt. Approval was secured for a conversion to a dwelling and garage, subject to the removal of all permitted development rights. The council says this was done to protect the character and appearance of the appeal property and to prevent harm to the openness of the Greenbelt. The inspector says the permitted development works would be screened by the north and west elevations. Also, the council have not provided any examples that would be particularly harmful. The council says the construction of a dwelling on the site does not fall within any of the exceptions set out in paragraph 145 of the framework. To this, the inspector says the building was the subject of a change of use and therefore did not constitute the construction of a new dwelling. The framework allows the reuse of buildings provided that they are of a permanent and substantial structure. The council contend that leaving permitted development rights intact would allow disproportionate additions over and above the size of the original building. To this, the inspector says the GPDO places no restrictions on permitted development rights in the Greenbelt, as it does with other designated areas such as national parks. The fact the GPDO places no restriction on dwellings within Greenbelts suggests that development carried out under permitted development would not be inappropriate or harmful to its openness. In the absence of clear justification, the condition was judged neither reasonable or necessary, and the appeal was allowed. On this two-storey dwelling, approval was obtained to add a two-storey rear extension. The condition applied by the council was for the removal of permitted development rights classes A to E. According to the inspector, this condition removes rights unconnected with the proposed extension and was therefore unreasonable. The appeal was allowed. In this case, approval was granted for the conversion of stables to a dwelling, subject to removal of all permitted development rights. The council indicated that without the condition, there was the potential for buildings of a disproportionate size to be added. The inspector pointed out the following. First, further development would be constrained by the site itself and the physical criteria set out by the classes. The site is relatively self-contained with limited space to the rear for a rear extension. Secondly, no detailed evidence was submitted to show how any such works might harm the openness of the Greenbelt. And thirdly, the condition was a blanket removal of permitted development rights. The condition was considered neither reasonable or necessary, and the appeal was allowed. In this case, the main dwelling and a two-storey outbuilding sit in a spacious plot with mature trees at the boundary. Approval was granted for the conversion of the outbuilding to a separate domestic dwelling subject to the following conditions. The removal of permitted development rights under classes A, AA, B and E for the house conversion and under class E for developments within the curtilage. The inspector observed the development would not be conspicuous in the wider area, and the council had not explained how the Greenbelt would be impacted adversely. In the absence of justification for the conditions, they were not considered to be reasonable or necessary, and the appeal was allowed. In this case, planning approval was secured for a single-storey rear extension, and the condition applied was the removal of permitted development rights under classes A, B and E. Fortunately, the owners had obtained prior approval for a permitted development scheme for a very similar rear extension. The only difference was a gap in the side wall in the permitted development scheme. If the permitted development scheme were to be implemented, then permitted development rights would be unaffected. The inspector believed this to be a credible fallback position and gave it significant weight. Given the fallback position would leave the permitted development rights untouched, the inspector did not consider that there was sufficient justification to remove the permitted development rights. The appeal was allowed. That's it for this video. Please like or subscribe to support this channel if you will. Next week I'll look at another 4 dwellings located in the Greenbelt. Thanks for watching. See you next week.